Hi everyone and welcome to Science Lab. The signs are happening because Lord Jesus Christ is coming. Every day we are looking at some of the great signs that are happening around us. Imagine you are in a forest in the middle of nowhere. There is no Wi-Fi, cell phone service or any way of communication with the outside world. There is not much you can do about it until now. SpaceX has been launching Starlink satellites into orbit since 2019.
It's Elon Musk's ambitious project to provide high-speed internet anywhere, even to the most remote locations in the world. The goal is to connect the planet by delivering internet to places where it's unreliable, expensive, or just not available. But Starlink is also being created for another reason. There's a bigger purpose behind it.
So how exactly does Starlink work? SpaceX is using its Falcon 9 rocket to launch about 60 Starlink satellites at a time. The satellites are stacked on top of each other. The satellites are placed at a relatively low altitude in space because the closer you are to Earth, the lower the latency. Latency refers to how much time it takes for a signal to travel to its destinations and back. Starlink's speed will be good enough for competitive gaming. It's targeting a latency of less than 20 milliseconds. That's faster than cable internet, incomparable to what you did get with fiber optic broadband. 1,000 satellites will be enough for basic services, but SpaceX want to get 1,200 of these satellites into orbit. As of June 13, 2020, SpaceX has launched 450. The company has actually applied for permission to launch up to 42,000 satellites. Although it's not guaranteed that they will actually launch that many, but why so much? Because the satellites are so much closer to the Earth that they can be stationary. They have to move faster to maintain their orbit. They will cover a smaller area, so more satellites are required for internet coverage everywhere. What SpaceX is trying to achieve is unprecedented. Only about 9,000 satellites have been launched in all of the history. Out of those 9,000, about 5,000 are in the orbit and less than half are actually in use. In comparisons, Starlink will be a ridiculously large satellite constellation. But with that comes the concerns. Scientists are worried about light pollution because of how much closer the satellites are to the Earth. They are bright enough to see without a telescope. SpaceX has been trying to address the issues. The latest batch it launched had a sunset that can block reflections of sunlight off the antenna. Starlink is controlled on Earth with a device about the size of a pizza box. The terminal will look like a round UFO on a stick and it will be easy to use. There are two instructions: plug-in socket, point at sky. But it's not so simple for those who live in countries where the internet is censored. One of the most famous examples is the Great Firewall of China, where Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube and Google all are banned. Starlink's internet access cannot be controlled by national governments because it doesn't rely on domestic communications infrastructure. But a government that censures the internet will probably ban the Starlink device. Like most things that are banned, it will be impossible to confiscate them all. But countries can also try to jam the satellite signals or take it one step further. Elon once said that about what China could do. If they are upset with us, they can blow our satellites up, which wouldn't be good. China can't do that, so probably we shouldn't broadcast there. Let's not forget Elon's another company, Tesla, has a lot invested in China. There is a huge customer base there, as well as the Gigafactory in Shanghai. Starlink hopes to begin service in North America, first starting with the northern US and Canada in 2020, and then expanding coverage to nearly everywhere in the world by 2021. If you live in a large city, Starlink is not necessarily going to replace your internet provider. Starlink is not intended to be used in high-density areas because it doesn't have sufficient bandwidth. The focus is on reaching places that don't have coverage or where coverage is weak. SpaceX does have complications in the space internet race, but is also ahead of the game. The company is at an advantage because it owns its own rockets, and the rockets are reusable. They land back to the Earth, and that is the key because it significantly brings down the cost of each launch. The British startup OneWeb was a competitor, but earlier this year it filed with bankruptcy. Image's Project Kuiper also want to bring you high-speed internet from space. Its CEO Jeff Bezos is the owner of the Blue Origin, which is also developing reusable rockets. SpaceX has not said how much this Starlink service will cost, but there is meant to generate a lot of revenue for the company. SpaceX estimates Starlink will eventually bring in $30 billion a year. That's about 10 times more than the annual revenue it expects from its core rocket launch business. The revenue from Starlink will be used to support Elon's greatest ambition. I can't emphasize this enough. This is the thing that we need to do. We must make life sustainably multi-planetary. Starlink will help fund the development of a city on Mars. There are also plans to use the satellite system on the Red Planet too. So Starlink is not just a standalone project, it's a piece of puzzle leading to a larger goal. It's not an end, but a means to end, and that means end of civilization on another planet. Don't go anywhere, we'll meet you after a short break. Welcome back to Science Lab. The signs are happening because Lord Jesus Christ is coming. Like many of us, you may have laid witness to some of the bright strings of light shooting across the night sky recently. Shooting stars, orchestrated drones, or even UFO perhaps. While any of those things would be equally as exciting, chances are that you would be really seeing was Starlink, the satellite constellation being constructed by Elon Musk and his budding team at SpaceX.
So what exactly is Starlink, and why is it projected to bring in around 30 billion of yearly revenue by the year 2025? Simply put, Starlink is a satellite internet constellation being constructed by SpaceX, Elon Musk's famously ambitious aerospace company. A satellite internet constellation, or mega constellation as it's also known, as a network of satellites that works together in unison to bring us internet access.
The firm is working towards building a network of 12,000 satellites to provide high-quality, affordable internet to essentially the entire city. There are current 420 Starlink satellites into orbit today, 300 of which was sent up between January and May of 2020 alone. As for the specs, we'll only know how Starlink's speed and latency figures stack up against the competition where real-world use is in full swing. However, Musk has suggested that the service could reach speed of up to 1 gigabyte per second with a latency of between 25 and 35 milliseconds. Elon Musk has also projected some more ambitious figures, saying that his team is aiming for sub-20 milliseconds latency initially and plan to reach sub-10 milliseconds over time. A beta testing partnership between the US Air Force and Starlink, called Global Lightning, saw download speeds of 610 megabytes per second, so the estimates might not be all that far-fetched. So far reliable internet, low latency, it must be expensive, right? Well, not as expensive as you might think. There may be an upfront cost for Starlink internet as the system will rely on government terminals or gateways to bring the internet into their homes. Musk says these terminals look like small to medium-sized pizzas, leading to them being simply known as pizza boxes. Each pizza box is estimated to cost anywhere from between 100 to 300, and that's not been commented officially, and it will probably be included in the monthly rental fee anyway. As for that all-important monthly fee, again, there have been no official numbers released. However, the president of SpaceX said during the interview, "Is anybody paying less than $80 a month for crappy service? No. That's why we are going to be successful." This has pointed many towards thinking that the service will cost around $80 and maybe even a little less. Comparatively, a 12 to 100 megabyte per second internet plan from Vsat costs between $30 and $150 per month, and a 25 megabyte plan from Hughes Net ranges from around $60 to $150 per month. $80 per month for Starlink with internet speed potentially reaching 1 gigabyte per second sounds rather competitive to me. Musk started Starlink as a SpaceX spin-off in order to fund his intergalactic exploration dreams of one day making it to Mars. Seeing as he was already in the business of sending stuff to space, capturing a significant portion of the estimated 1 trillion worldwide internet connectivity market seemed like a pretty good place to start. In 2015, Musk started that he had filled documents to place around 4,000 satellites into low Earth orbit. However, this number quickly turned to 12,000 and maybe eventually be granted permission to send up as much as 30,000. To put that one perspective, according to the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs, only 9,000 artificial satellites have been launched into space and just 2,000 remain to this day. So why does Musk need so many of these Starlink satellites, and how do they work in the first place? For starters, most of us tend to think that all the satellites as being great big pieces of engineering with two giant solar panels striking out to either end. Starlink satellites are in fact relatively small. They weigh only 500 pounds, around the same size as a tabletop, and figure just one solar panel. Krypton-powered iron thrusters allow the satellites to adjust their orbit while in use and re-orbit when they are reached up to the end of their working life. The satellite also have the ability to autonomously avoid space debris. SpaceX claims that their Starlink satellites are the first ever Krypton-propelled spacecraft, which is said to be the future of space propulsion. The Starlink system worked by internet signals being communicated up to any Starlink satellites being sprayed out throughout the internet and then being fired back down to any point on Earth. The process works in somewhat similar way to traditional internet satellites, in which a signal is sent from the internet service provider to the satellite in order and is also then triangulated back down to the receiver. However, in the Starlink system, the signal is sent from the internet service provider to one Starlink satellite, which then sends the signal to one of the 4 other satellites it's connected to. The signal is passed along the internet at the speed of light until it reaches the optimum satellite for sending the signal down to the receiver. This process reduces latency or lag significantly over long distances. Each Starlink satellite is equipped with 4 incredibly powerful phased array antennas, with each being capable of heading an enormous amount of radio wave throughput. This facilitates a very efficient transfer of information and easily very fast internet speeds. Delivering the internet via satellite is so much more efficient than by wire because the signal travels 47% faster as a wave through the vacuum of space than it does traveling along a fiber optic cable. fiber optic internet will remain faster over short distances, but over longer ranges, there will be no comparison. Starlink will also be able to provide such reliable and fast internet because of where they are being placed in orbit. Current internet satellites orbit at around 35,800 kilometers above the Earth, which is really far away. So the coverage area through satellite is great, but the distance also results in a time delay between sending and receiving data. Starlink satellite's orbit is significantly close at around 550 kilometers above the Earth's surface. This means that they triangulate data much faster with minimal delay, but also means that their coverage area is far smaller. So we need to load more of them to build up a comprehensive network that offers reliable global coverage. After the first launch of 60 Starlinks went up in May 2018 and the second batch in November, astronomers immediately complained about how bright the satellite chains were and how the light pollution was compromising their observations. Researchers have expressed concerns about the future images of outer space being negatively affected by the Starlink constellation. Radio astronomers are also expecting to encounter interference from Starlink radio-based antennas. SpaceX received even more backlash in late 2019 when the European Space Agency announced that they had to undertake evasive maneuvers with one of their satellites to avoid crashing into Starlink 44, one of the first 60 satellites in the mega constellation. SpaceX has expressed that they are working with many agencies and space organizations to mitigate any potential issues, and they are also actively working towards a number of solutions to make their satellites less visible. SpaceX has already come up with a targeting treatment to lessen the satellite's reflectability, which is a technology that they will be applied to all Starlink satellites. They have stated that as the constellation grows, they will be able to move them further out into the orbit, making them far less visible to Earth and less likely to come into the path of other low-orbiting satellites. Both moves are definitely a step in the right direction, but that doesn't exactly get rid of the problem. So advocates are calling for greater regulations from government agencies to force the company's hand, so to speak. The enormous benefits of global internet coverage are undoubtedly going to be outweighed the cost of astronomers, so it's unlikely that Musk is even a little bit worried about these so-called advocates interfering with his plans. Starlink is set to start offering services in the northern US and Canada by late 2020 and expects to offer near global coverage of the populated world by the year 2021. These dates are just around the corner, making Starlink's estimated yearly revenue of $30 billion by 2025 seems even more mind-boggling. However, if you take it into consideration that internet access is said to be a $1 trillion industry, Starlink has only to capture 3% of that market to hit those figures. As it stands, SpaceX's annual revenue is just a fraction of that number at $2 billion, and Musk says that number could really stretch to $3 billion if they continue down the same path. The huge influx in revenue Starlink might and most probably will bring in will open up a whole new world of possibilities of SpaceX, not to mention speed up their ever-increasing rate of development within the aerospace technology sector.
Internet providers like Starlink may be happy news for many, where they may get high-speed internet at low cost even to the remote corner of the earth. But this reminds me of a verse in the Bible. He was granted power to give breath to the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause as many as would not worship the image of the beast to be killed. He causes all, both small, great, rich, poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on the right hand or on the foreheads, and that no one may buy or sell except one who has the mark of the name of the beast or the number of its name.
Those who refuse to take this mark and hide themselves will be caught by the system like Starlink, where it will be in the remote corner of the earth. We might think that those Bible verses won't come to pass in our lifetime, but the fact is, it's right in the corner.
All they show that what is mentioned in the Bible that are going to take place in the end times are taking place in our lifetime. We are living in the last days. The Lord Jesus Christ is coming again very soon. Thank you for watching this episode. Don't forget to tune into Science Lab next time.
Before we end the show, we would like to ask you a question from this episode. What is Starlink? Option A, star constellation. Option B, planet constellation. And option C, satellite constellation.
If you know the correct answer, send it to our email ID sciencelab@angeltv.org. If you have missed any of the episodes, don't worry, you can watch it again in our Science Lab YouTube page. But don't forget to like, share, comment on the video.
And also ask your friends and relatives to watch the Science Lab so that they will know that we are living in the last days. Remember, signs are happening because Lord Jesus Christ is coming.
Maranatha.